Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Aurora, watching the stars through the large front window. The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. His crew was doing their daily work, checking systems and running scans of nearby space. It was supposed to be another normal day of exploration in the outer colonies. Lisa Carter, the ship's science officer, looked up from her computer screen. Her face showed confusion as she studied the readings. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors." Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" "Multiple ships, sir, big ones. They just appeared at the edge of our sensor range near the Titan colony." Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "The energy signatures don't match any human vessels I know." Ben Rodriguez, the tactical officer, turned from his post. "Captain, I'm getting reports from Colonial Command. Unknown ships have surrounded 3 of our outer colonies. They're not responding to any communication attempts." Jake felt his stomach tighten. First contact with alien life was something humanity had prepared for, but not like this, not with unknown ships surrounding their colonies. "How many ships are we talking about?" "At least 30 in each location, sir. They're maintaining position just outside weapons range of our defense platforms." Ben's voice was steady, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. The bridge fell silent except for the steady beeping of the sensors. Jake had been in space for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. He thought about the millions of people living on those colonies, going about their daily lives while alien ships watched from space. "Sir, incoming transmission. From Admiral Brooks at Colonial Command," Amy Walsh called out from the communications station. "Put her through." Admiral Helen Brooks appeared on the main screen. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her face showed the strain of the situation. "Captain Morrison, we have a situation. Unknown vessels have appeared at multiple colony locations. We need the Aurora to proceed to the Titan colony immediately." "Understood, Admiral. What do we know about these ships?" "Very little. They appeared without warning about 2 hours ago. They're large, heavily armed, and they're not responding to our hail attempts. We're treating this as a potential first contact scenario, but we need to be prepared for the worst." Jake nodded. "We're changing course now. ETA to Titan colony is 6 hours at maximum speed." "Good. Be careful, Morrison. We don't know what we're dealing with." The screen went dark and Jake turned to his crew. "You heard the Admiral. Ben, plot a course for the Titan colony, maximum speed. Lisa, I want continuous scans. Amy, keep trying to establish communication with those ships." The Aurora turned and accelerated toward the Titan colony. Jake watched the stars blur slightly as they entered high-speed travel. His mind raced with possibilities. Were these aliens peaceful explorers like humans? Were they traders looking for new markets? Or were they something else entirely? 4 hours into their journey, Amy suddenly straightened at her station. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. It's not from Colonial Command." "From the alien ships?" "Yes, sir, it's coming through on multiple frequencies. The signal is strong and clear." Jake took a deep breath. This was it. Humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. "Put it through." The main screen flickered and an alien face appeared. The creature had blue-gray skin, large dark eyes, and a mouth that seemed too wide for its face. When it spoke, the words came through a translation device that made the voice sound flat and mechanical. "I am Commander Vel Thresh of the Zephyrian Empire. You will identify yourselves immediately." Jake stepped forward. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Aurora. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations." The aliens' expression didn't change. "Humans. Yes, we have heard of your species. You will listen carefully to what I say next. The Zephyrian Empire claims dominion over this region of space. Your colonies are now within our territory. Our colonies have been established here for over 50 years. We have legal claim to these systems. Your claims mean nothing. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered 47 different species across this galaxy. We offer you the same choice we offer all inferior races. Complete surrender within 72 hours, or face total destruction." Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. We need time to discuss this with our government. 72 hours, not 1 minute more. The alien paused, and Jake noticed something strange in its large, dark eyes. Was that fear? We have studied your species, humans. We know what you are capable of. Do not test our patience. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in shocked silence. Jake stared at the empty screen, trying to process what had just happened. The alien had threatened to destroy human colonies, but there had been something odd about its manner. Something that didn't match the confident words. Captain, Lisa said quietly, did that alien seem nervous to you? Ben nodded from his station. I was thinking the same thing. For a species that supposedly conquered 47 others, he didn't sound very sure of himself. Jake walked back to his captain's chair. Amy, send a priority message to Colonial Command. Include a full recording of that transmission. Tell them we have 72 hours. Yes, sir. Lisa, I want you to analyze everything about that transmission. Voice patterns, body language, anything that might tell us more about these Zephyrians. Already on it, Captain. The Aurora continued toward the Titan colony, but Jake's mind was focused on the alien commander's words. The Zephyrian had said they knew what humans were capable of. What did that mean? Humans were still new to space travel compared to other species. They had no great military victories or advanced weapons that would frighten an empire that had conquered nearly 50 worlds. 2 hours later, Amy received another transmission, this one from Admiral Brooks. The Admiral's face appeared on screen, looking more tired than before. Morrison, we've received your report. The same ultimatum has been delivered to all our colonies. 72 hours to surrender or face destruction. What are your orders, Admiral? We're mobilizing the fleet, but honestly, we're outgunned. These aliens have technology we've never seen before. Their ships are at least twice the size of our largest vessels. Jake frowned. Admiral, there was something strange about their commander. He seemed almost afraid when he mentioned humans specifically. Afraid? Of us? Morrison, we're talking about a species that's conquered nearly 50 worlds. What could they possibly fear from humanity? I don't know, but I think we need to find out. There's more to this than a simple conquest. Admiral Brooks was quiet for a moment. Continue to the Titan colony, but maintain distance from those alien ships. We need more information before we make any decisions. The transmission ended, and Jake looked out at the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, alien ships were pointing weapons at human colonies, threatening to destroy everything humanity had built among the stars. But there was a mystery here. Something about the way the Zephyrian commander had acted that didn't make sense. Captain, Lisa called out, I've finished analyzing the transmission. You're going to want to see this. Jake walked over to her station. What did you find? The alien's stress indicators were off the charts. Heart rate, breathing patterns, even the way he held his shoulders. Everything pointed to extreme anxiety. This wasn't a confident conqueror delivering an ultimatum. This was someone who was terrified of the response he might get. Jake stared at the data on Lisa's screen. An empire that had conquered 47 worlds was afraid of humanity. The question was why, and Jake had a feeling that the answer might be the key to saving the colonies without firing a single shot. The Aurora reached the Titan colony 12 hours after receiving the alien ultimatum. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, looking at the massive alien ships that floated in space like dark metal mountains. Each Zephyrian vessel was at least 3 times larger than the biggest human ship he had ever seen. Their hull designs were sharp and angular, clearly built for war. Captain, we're receiving hails from the Titan colony administrator, Amy Walsh, reported from her communication station. Put him through. Governor Paul Davis appeared on the main screen. The man looked like he hadn't slept in days. His usually neat beard was messy, and his eyes showed the strain of the situation. Captain Morrison, thank God you're here. These alien ships have been sitting out there for almost 20 hours now. My people are scared. Any hostile actions from the aliens, Governor? None yet, but they're scanning our colony constantly. Our defense platforms are ready, but honestly, we wouldn't last 5 minutes against those ships. Jake studied the tactical display that Ben Rodriguez had put up on a side screen. The Zephyrian ships were arranged in a perfect circle around the colony. but they stayed well outside the range of human weapons. It was a strange formation for an attacking force. "Governor, we're going to figure this out. Keep your people calm and maintain normal operations as much as possible." After ending the transmission, Jake turned to his science officer. "Lisa, what have you learned about these ships?" Lisa Carter looked up from her station, her face showing excitement despite the dangerous situation. "Captain, I've been analyzing their energy signatures and comparing them to the database of known technologies. These ships are incredibly advanced, but there's something odd about their behavior." "What do you mean?" "They're maintaining what I can only describe as a respectful distance. Most attacking forces position themselves to maximize damage and minimize response time. These ships are positioned to contain the colony, but not to attack it efficiently." Ben Rodriguez nodded from his tactical station. "Lisa's right, Captain. If I were planning an attack on this colony, I'd position my ships completely differently. This formation looks more like they're trying to prevent us from leaving rather than preparing to destroy us." Jake walked to the front window and stared at the alien fleet. Something about this whole situation felt wrong. The Zephyrians claimed to have conquered 47 worlds, but their actions didn't match their reputation. "Amy, any luck intercepting their communications?" "Actually, yes, sir. I've been picking up transmissions between their ships. The translation software is having trouble, but I'm getting fragments." "What kind of fragments?" Amy frowned at her screen. "References to something called persistence hunters. And there's a phrase that keeps repeating. The translation comes out as no stopping or never quit." Lisa suddenly looked up from her computer. "Captain, I think I know why they're acting strange. I've been going through our first contact protocols and comparing them to historical records of other species' first contacts." "Go on." "Sir, we might not be the first species these Zephyrians have encountered who knew about them in advance. But we might be the first species they've encountered who already had a reputation." Jake turned from the window. "What kind of reputation?" "I don't know yet, but Amy's interceptions suggest that other species in this galaxy have been talking about humans. We might be more famous than we realized." Over the next several hours, Amy worked tirelessly to intercept and translate more Zephyrian communications. The breakthrough came when she managed to tap into what appeared to be a private channel between two of their science officers. "Captain, you need to hear this," Amy called out excitedly. Jake hurried to her station. "What did you find?" "I've got a clear translation of a conversation between two Zephyrian officers. They were discussing something called the Galactic Intelligence Archive. Apparently, it's a database that various species contribute to, sharing information about new races they encounter." "And humans are in this database?" "Yes, sir. But not the way you'd expect." Amy's fingers moved over her controls, bringing up the translated text. "Listen to this. Quote, the species designation is human, origin system Sol, classification type 7 persistence hunter. Warning, subject species demonstrates unprecedented endurance capabilities. Recommend extreme caution in direct engagement." Lisa leaned over to read the translation. "Persistence hunter? What does that mean?" "There's more," Amy continued. Quote, previous observations indicate human subjects will continue mission objectives despite severe injury, resource depletion, or tactical disadvantage. No recorded instances of human surrender when protecting territorial claims or colony populations. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. They think we're some kind of unstoppable force. It gets better, Captain. Or worse, depending on how you look at it. Amy scrolled down to more translated text. Quote, recommendation from Altarian High Command. Do not engage humans in prolonged conflict. Species shows unusual tendency to escalate engagement rather than retreat when faced with superior forces. Ben Rodriguez whistled softly. No wonder. Their commander seemed nervous. They think we're crazy enough to fight a war we can't win. But why would they think that? Jake asked. We've never fought a major war with aliens. Most of our conflicts have been peaceful negotiations or minor disputes. Lisa was already working at her computer, accessing human colonial records. Captain, I think I found part of the answer. Look at our rescue mission records. Jake walked over to her station and read the data she had pulled up. The records showed dozens of human rescue operations over the past 50 years. Search and rescue teams that had spent months looking for lost colonists, medical teams that had worked for weeks to save a single person, engineering crews that had rebuilt entire colonies after natural disasters. The Kepler station disaster, Lisa pointed to one record. When that space station lost power and life support, the rescue team worked for 18 days straight without sleep to save everyone aboard. The Henderson colony plague, Ben added, reading over their shoulders. Our medical team stayed for 6 months, working around the clock until they found a cure. Even after other species' medical advisors said the situation was hopeless, Jake began to understand. Other species see our rescue operations and think we're capable of the same dedication in warfare. Exactly, Lisa said. What we consider normal human determination, they see as terrifying persistence. They think if humans decide to fight, we'll never stop. Amy's communication station suddenly came alive with new transmissions. Captain, I'm picking up a tight beam communication from one of the Zephyrian ships. It's not going to their fleet command, it's directed at us. Put it through, but keep it private. Don't let their command ships know we're receiving it. The screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. This Zephyrian looked younger than Commander Velthresh, with lighter-colored skin and smaller eyes. When he spoke, his voice was quiet and nervous. Human vessel, I am Science Officer Keith Var of the research ship Distant Thunder. I request private communication. Jake stepped forward carefully. I'm Captain Morrison. Why are you contacting us secretly? Because my commander does not know I speak your language well enough for direct communication. I have studied human behavior for 3 standard cycles. I need to warn you. Warn us about what? The alien looked around nervously before continuing. Your species has a reputation across 17 different star systems. You are known as the species that never gives up. The High Command is terrified of fighting humans because they believe you will fight until every last human is dead, then somehow continue fighting beyond that. Jake exchanged glances with his crew. Science Officer Keth Var, humans prefer peace. We don't want to fight anyone. That is what makes you so frightening to the Empire. Every species we have conquered eventually accepted defeat and surrendered. Our intelligence suggests that humans would rather die than surrender. The High Command believes that attacking human colonies would result in a war that could last centuries. But we're outnumbered. Your ships are more advanced than ours. Keth Var's expression became even more serious. Captain, the Empire has conquered 47 worlds but never fought a species like humans. We conquer through overwhelming force that leads to quick surrender. We do not know how to fight an enemy that refuses to quit. The transmission suddenly cut off, leaving Jake and his crew staring at a blank screen. In the space of a few hours, they had learned that humanity had somehow developed a reputation as the most determined fighters in the galaxy, simply by being themselves. Captain, Ben said quietly, if they're that afraid of human determination, maybe we can use that to our advantage. Jake nodded slowly. The Zephyrians expected humans to be unstoppable in battle, but what they didn't understand was that human persistence could be applied to peace just as effectively as war. The question was whether they could convince an alien empire that humanity's greatest strength wasn't destroying enemies but finding ways to turn enemies into allies. 24 hours had passed since the secret communication with Science Officer Keth Var. Jake Morrison sat in his ready room, reading reports from Colonial Command. Admiral Brooks had been in contact with the other colony systems, and the news was the same everywhere. Zephyrian fleets surrounded human colonies, maintaining their strange, respectful distance while delivering ultimatums. The door chimed, and Commander Tony Phillips entered. Phillips was the Aurora's second-in-command, a tall man with graying hair who had served in the Colonial Marines before joining the Exploration Service. His face showed the strain of the past day. Captain, we just received new orders from Admiral Brooks. You're not going to like this. Jake looked up from his reports. What kind of orders? The Zephyrians have made a new proposal. Instead of immediate surrender or destruction, they're offering what they call a test of worthiness. What kind of test? Tony handed Jake a data pad containing the full message. They want to see if our reputation is deserved. If we can prove that humans really are as persistent as the galactic rumors claim, they'll withdraw from our space and leave us alone. Jake read through the proposal carefully. The test was simple in concept, but terrifying in execution. A team of humans would be placed on a planet called Zerion 7, known throughout the galaxy as one of the most hostile worlds ever discovered. They would need to survive there for 30 standard days. Zerion 7, Jake said, reading the planetary data. Extreme temperature variations, toxic storms, predatory wildlife, and atmosphere that's barely breathable. The Zephyrians say no species has ever lasted more than 10 days on this world. That's the catch, Captain. According to their records, 17 different species have attempted to colonize or survive on Zerion 7. The longest any group lasted was 12 days before requesting emergency evacuation. Most groups called for help within a week. Jake studied the environmental data more carefully. During the day, temperatures on Zerion 7 reached over 60 degrees Celsius. At night, they dropped to -40. The atmosphere contained enough oxygen to breathe, but also included several toxic compounds that would slowly poison anyone exposed to them. The planet experienced violent electrical storms almost daily, and the wildlife included several species of aggressive predators. The Zephyrians are convinced that humans will fail just like everyone else, Tony continued, but they're willing to honor our reputation enough to give us the chance to prove ourselves. And if we fail, immediate surrender of all human colonies in this sector. If we succeed, they withdraw completely and recognize our territorial claims. Jake set down the data pad and walked to the window of his ready room. Outside, he could see the Zephyrian fleet maintaining their watchful positions around the Titan colony. The alien ships looked like sleeping giants, ready to wake up and destroy everything humans had built in this part of space. Tony, what do you think about this proposal? Honestly, Captain, I think it's a trap. No one survives 30 days on Zerion 7. The Zephyrians are offering us a way to surrender with honor, instead of being destroyed outright. Jake was quiet for several minutes, thinking about the situation. The test seemed impossible, but there was something about it that didn't make sense. If the Zephyrians were so confident that humans would fail, why offer the test at all? Why not just attack and get it over with? Tony, get me a secure channel to Admiral Brooks. I want to discuss this with Colonial Command. 30 minutes later, Jake was in a video conference with Admiral Brooks and the other colony commanders. The discussion was heated, with most of the military leaders arguing against accepting the test. It's suicide, said Colonel Frank Weber, from the New Berlin colony. Zerion 7 is a death trap. We'd be sending our people to die for nothing. Admiral Brooks looked tired and frustrated. The alternative is immediate war with a force that outguns us 10 to 1. At least the test gives us a chance. What kind of chance? Colonel Weber shot back. No species has ever survived 30 days on that planet. We'd be proving their point that humans are just as weak as everyone else. Jake had been listening to the argument for 20 minutes before he finally spoke up. Admiral, what if we're looking at this wrong? What do you mean, Morrison? The Zephyrians fear human persistence, right? They think we never give up. But what if the real test isn't whether we can survive 30 days on Zerion 7? What if the test is whether we'll even try? Admiral Brooks frowned. Explain. Think about it. 17 species have attempted this challenge. The longest anyone lasted was 12 days, but all of them eventually gave up and called for rescue. What if the Zephyrians are testing whether humans will quit when things get impossible? Colonel Weber shook his head. Morrison, even if that's true, it doesn't change the fact that Zerion 7 will kill anyone we send there. Maybe. But what if it doesn't? What if previous groups failed not because the planet was impossible to survive on, but because they gave up too soon? The conference room fell silent. Jake could see the other commanders thinking about his words. Finally, Admiral Brooks spoke. Morrison, are you volunteering to lead this mission? Yes, ma'am. I think we need to accept their test, but not the way they expect us to. What do you mean? Jake had been forming a plan while listening to the arguments. The Zephyrians expect us to try to survive and then give up when things get too hard. Instead, we don't just survive. We thrive. We show them that humans don't just endure impossible conditions. We find ways to make impossible conditions work for us. Admiral Brooks was quiet for a long moment. Morrison, you're talking about taking 12 people to one of the most hostile planets in the galaxy, and not just keeping them alive, but making them comfortable there. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Admiral. The Zephyrians have studied our rescue operations and our colony disasters. They know we don't give up, but I don't think they understand what that really means. Tony Phillips, who had been listening to the conversation, suddenly spoke up. Captain, I volunteer to be part of the team. Tony, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do. If we're going to prove that humans are different from every other species in the galaxy, we need to show them what human determination really looks like. Over the next hour, Jake assembled his team. Tony Phillips would serve as second in command. Rachel Stone, the Aurora's chief engineer, volunteered immediately when she heard about the challenge. Greg Parker, a medic from the Titan colony, insisted on joining after reading about the toxic atmosphere. Sue Martinez, a geologist who had spent years studying hostile planetary environments, said the mission sounded like the challenge of a lifetime. By the end of the day, Jake had 12 volunteers, each chosen for specific skills that would be needed on Zarian 7. The team included engineers, scientists, medics, and survival specialists. More importantly, they were all people who had never given up on anything in their lives. Admiral, Jake said during his final report to Colonial Command, we accept the Zephyrian test, but we're not going to Zarian 7 to prove we can survive. 30 days. We're going there to prove that humans can make a home anywhere. Admiral Brooks nodded slowly. Morrison, you have 48 hours to prepare. The Zephyrians are providing transport to Zarian 7, and they'll be monitoring everything you do. The entire galaxy will be watching this test. Understood, Admiral. We won't let humanity down. After the transmission ended, Jake stood alone in his ready room looking out at the alien fleet. In 2 days, he and 11 other humans would be dropped on the most hostile planet anyone had ever discovered. They would have basic survival equipment and 30 days to prove that human persistence was more than just a reputation. The strange thing was, Jake wasn't scared. He was excited. For the first time since the aliens had appeared, humanity had a chance to show the galaxy what they were really capable of. Not through warfare or superior technology, but through the simple human refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. Jake smiled as he watched the Zephyrian ships. They thought they were testing human survival skills, but they were about to learn something much more important. They were about to discover that humans didn't just survive impossible situations. They turned impossible situations into opportunities. Jake Morrison felt the Zephyrian transport ship shake as it entered Zarian 7's atmosphere. Through the small window, he could see lightning flashing through dark purple clouds. The planet below looked angry, with swirling storms covering most of the surface. Red and orange patches showed where the ground was hot enough to glow. Final approach to drop zone, announced the Zephyrian pilot through the translation device. The alien's voice sounded almost sympathetic. Surface temperature is currently 58 degrees Celsius. Storm activity is moderate. You have 10 minutes to prepare for deployment. Jake looked around at his team of 11 other humans. They sat quietly in the cramped transport, checking their equipment one final time. Each person carried basic survival gear, water purification tablets, emergency food rations for 3 days, a small shelter, and tools for building more permanent structures. Tony Phillips sat across from Jake, reviewing data on his portable computer. The drop zone is in a valley between 2 mountain ranges. Should provide some protection from the worst storms. Rachel Stone, the engineer, was examining her toolkit. The geological surveys show metal deposits in those mountains. If we can access them, I can build better tools and equipment. Greg Parker, the medic, held a case containing medical supplies and samples of various treatments for toxic exposure. The atmospheric readings show 3 main toxins. I've prepared treatments for all of them, but we'll need to find local sources for ongoing protection. Sue Martinez, the geologist, was studying topographical maps of their landing area. There are several cave systems in the region. Natural shelter could be crucial during the worst storms. The transport ship dropped lower, and Jake could feel the heat starting to penetrate the hull. Even with the ship's environmental systems running at maximum, the temperature inside was rising uncomfortably. 30 seconds to drop, the pilot announced. Jake stood up and faced his team. Remember, we're not here to just survive 30 days. We're here to show the galaxy what humans can do. Stay together, work together, and don't give up no matter what happens. The transport touched down with a heavy thud, and immediately the rear door opened. Hot air rushed in like a furnace blast, making everyone gasp. The smell was terrible, like burning metal mixed with rotting plants. "Go, go, go!" Jake shouted, and the 12 humans ran out of the transport carrying their equipment. The Zephyrian ship lifted off immediately, leaving them alone on the hostile surface of Xerion 7. Jake looked around at their new environment. The ground was rocky and covered with a thin layer of some kind of orange dust. Strange plants with thick, waxy leaves grew in patches between the rocks. In the distance, he could see the mountains Sue had mentioned, their peaks disappearing into the stormy sky. "Temperature check," called out Danny Murphy, the team's security specialist. "My readings show 59 degrees and rising." "We need shelter fast," Rachel said, already unpacking her tools. "That cave system Sue found is about 2 kilometers north." The team moved quickly across the hostile landscape. The heat was incredible, like walking inside an oven. Within minutes, everyone was soaked in sweat despite drinking water constantly. The toxic air made their throats burn, and several team members were already coughing. They reached the cave entrance just as the first major storm of the day began. Lightning crashed down around them, and the wind picked up to dangerous levels. The 12 humans crowded into the cave mouth, grateful for the slightly cooler temperature inside. "Day 1, Hour 3, Jake said into his recorder as the storm raged outside. "We've found shelter in a natural cave system. The team is tired but in good condition, beginning exploration of our new home." Over the next week, the human team did something that surprised even themselves. Instead of just trying to survive, they began to adapt. Rachel discovered that the metal deposits in the cave walls could be extracted and shaped into better tools. Sue found underground water sources that were cleaner than anything on the surface. Greg learned that several of the local plants could be processed into medicines that actually helped fight the atmospheric toxins. By day 10, they had established a comfortable living area deep in the cave system. Rachel had built a workshop, where she created improved tools and equipment. Greg had set up a medical station where he treated the daily effects of toxic exposure and studied local plant life. Sue had mapped the entire cave network and found several chambers that could be expanded into larger living spaces. But the real breakthrough came on day 15, when Kate Johnson, the team's pilot and electronics specialist, managed to do something impossible. She figured out how to harness the planet's violent electrical storms. "Jake, you need to see this," Kate called excitedly from her work area near the cave entrance. Jake found her standing next to a complex arrangement of metal rods and wires that stretched from deep inside the cave to the storm outside. Lightning was striking the metal rods, but instead of causing damage, the electricity was flowing through Kate's system into a series of batteries she had built from local materials. "Kate, this is incredible. How did you figure this out?" "The storms follow a pattern," she explained, her eyes bright with excitement. "They hit the same areas at almost the same times every day, and the electrical discharge isn't random. It's actually very consistent. I realized we could treat the lightning like a power source instead of a threat. With the electrical power available, the team's living conditions improved dramatically. Rachel built better tools and equipment. Greg set up proper lighting for his medical research. Sue used electric heating to explore deeper into the cave system. More importantly, they began to expand beyond just surviving. Dan Murphy started exploring the surface during the cooler nighttime hours, mapping the local area and studying the wildlife. He discovered that several of the planet's predators could actually be avoided easily, once you understood their behavior patterns. Laura Kim, the team's biologist, made an even more surprising discovery. The toxic plants that made the atmosphere dangerous could be processed into materials that were incredibly useful. The same compounds that poisoned the air could be turned into waterproof coatings, strong adhesives, and even a type of fabric that provided excellent protection against Heat. By day 20, the human team had stopped thinking about survival and started thinking about improvements. They expanded their cave system, built better furniture, and established what could only be called a comfortable home in the middle of hell. Day 22, Jake recorded during his daily report. Team morale is excellent. Rachel has completed construction of a water recycling system that's actually more efficient than what we had on some of our ships. Greg has identified 14 local plants with medical properties, and he's developing treatments that work better than anything we brought from Earth. Sue has mapped over 3 kilometers of cave systems and found mineral deposits that could support a small mining operation. The most amazing change came in how the team viewed their situation. Instead of counting down days until rescue, they started planning for the future. Kate wanted to build a more sophisticated power system. Rachel was designing plans for surface, structures that could withstand the daily storms. Sue was excited about the possibility of establishing a permanent research station. On day 25, something unprecedented happened. Jake received a communication request from the Zephyrian monitoring station. Human team leader, this is Science Officer Kethvar. We need to speak with you. Jake accepted the communication, and the familiar alien face appeared on his small screen. But Kethvar looked different. Instead of fear or nervousness, his expression showed something like amazement. Captain Morrison, we have been monitoring your progress on Zarian 7. Your team's behavior is unlike anything we have observed before. What do you mean, Science Officer? Previous species spent their time on Zarian 7 trying to avoid the planet's dangers while waiting for rescue. Your team appears to be treating the planet's dangers as resources to be utilized. Jake smiled. That's because we are. This planet isn't trying to kill us. It's just different from what we're used to. Once you understand how it works, you can work with it instead of against it. Captain, your team has already survived longer than any species in galactic history. But our readings suggest you are not merely surviving. You appear to be thriving. Science. Officer, we still have 5 days left in the test, but I want you to know something. When those 5 days are over, some of my team members want to stay. The alien's expression changed to complete shock. Stay? On Zarian 7? This planet has resources and opportunities that could benefit both humans and other species. We're not just proving we can survive here. We're proving that impossible places can become valuable places if you approach them the right way. The communication ended, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts. Outside the cave, another electrical storm was beginning. But instead of seeking shelter, he could hear Kate making adjustments to her power collection system. In the medical area, Greg was humming while he worked on his latest plant-based medicine. Throughout the cave, his team was going about their daily work with the satisfaction of people who had found a new home. The Zephyrians had expected humans to struggle for 30 days and then beg for rescue. Instead, they were watching humans turn the plow. Day 30 arrived on Zarian 7 with the most beautiful sunrise Jake Morrison had ever seen. The toxic storms had cleared during the night, and the planet's 3 suns cast the rocky landscape in brilliant colors of gold and orange. Standing at the entrance to what his team now called Base Camp Alpha, Jake watched the sunrise and smiled. Behind him, the cave system buzzed with activity. Rachel Stone was putting finishing touches on a surface habitat that could withstand the daily storms. Kate Johnson was expanding her electrical collection system to power the new structures. Greg Parker was preparing samples of local medicines to take back to human space for further study. Sue Martinez was completing detailed maps of mineral deposits that could support future colonies. The 30 days were officially over, but no one was packing to leave. Captain, called Laura Kim from her biology lab deeper in the caves, you need to see what I found in the soil samples from Sector 7. Jake walked through the comfortable corridors his team had carved and lit over the past month. The cave system now included sleeping quarters, workshops, laboratories, a medical center, and even a recreation area where the team gathered in the evenings to share meals and stories. Laura's lab was impressive, filled with equipment she had built from local materials and discoveries that would change how humans understood hostile planet environments. She was examining something under a microscope she had constructed from cave crystals and salvaged electronics. What is it, Laura? Microorganisms, Captain. But not just any microorganisms. These little creatures actually clean toxins from the soil and air. If we could cultivate them properly, we could terraform hostile planets in a fraction of the time it normally takes. Jake looked through the microscope at the tiny organisms swimming in the sample. Laura, are you saying this planet isn't naturally hostile? That something is actively making it more livable? Exactly. Zarion 7 is slowly healing itself. The electrical storms, the toxic plants, even the extreme temperatures are all part of a natural process that's cleaning up some kind of ancient disaster. In maybe 1,000 years, this could be a garden world. Before Jake could respond, his communication device activated. The familiar face of Science Officer HFY appeared on the screen, but this time he was not alone. Behind him stood several other Zephyrians, including the imposing figure of Commander Velthresh. Captain Morrison, HFY began, the test period has concluded. Are you ready for extraction? Jake smiled. Science Officer, we need to talk, but not about extraction. Commander Velthresh stepped forward, his large dark eyes showing confusion. Human, you have completed the test. You have survived 30 days on Zarion 7, something no species has accomplished before. You have proven your persistence. We are prepared to honor our agreement and withdraw from human space. Commander, we appreciate that, but we have a different proposal. The Zephyrian commander's expression became suspicious. What kind of proposal? We don't want you to withdraw. We want to work together. The aliens exchanged glances before Velthresh spoke again. Work together? Captain Morrison, the Zephyrian Empire does not work with other species. We conquer them or we avoid them. That's exactly why you need to work with us, Jake said. You've conquered 47 worlds, but what have you learned from them? What new technologies have you gained? What problems have you solved? HFY suddenly looked interested. Captain, what do you mean? Jake gestured toward the cave system behind him. In 30 days, my team has turned the most hostile planet in the galaxy into a comfortable home. We've discovered new energy sources, new medicines, new materials, and new biological processes. We've learned things that could benefit every species in the galaxy. But you are just 12 humans on one planet, Commander Velthresh said. Exactly. Imagine what we could accomplish together. Humans bring persistence and adaptability. Zephyrians bring advanced technology and galactic knowledge. Together we could solve problems that neither species could handle alone. The communication was quiet for several long moments. Jake could see the Zephyrian officers discussing something in their own language. Finally, HFY spoke. Captain Morrison, what you are suggesting has never been attempted. The Zephyrian Empire has always been a conquering force. And how has that worked out for you? Jake asked gently. You control 47 worlds, but you're still facing the same challenges you started with. You still have to conquer new worlds to expand. You still have to deal with hostile planets and dangerous environments. You still have to maintain control over species that resent being conquered. Commander Velthresh was quiet for a long time before responding. What exactly are you proposing, human? A partnership. Humans and Zephyrians working together to explore and develop worlds that other species consider impossible. You provide the transportation and technology. We provide the persistence and problem-solving. Everyone benefits from what we discover. Over the next hour, Jake outlined his vision. Human teams and Zephyrian scientists working together on hostile worlds throughout the galaxy, sharing discoveries and techniques that could make previously uninhabitable planets into thriving colonies, building relationships based on mutual benefit rather than conquest. The galaxy is full of worlds like Zarion 7, Jake explained. Planets with incredible resources that no one can access because the environments are too hostile. But what if they're not really hostile? What if they just require different approaches? Commander Velthresh seemed to be seriously considering the proposal. Captain, you would trust Zephyrians to work alongside humans after we threaten to destroy your colonies? Commander, you would trust humans to work alongside Zephyrians after learning our reputation as unstoppable persistence hunters? Thoroi. Alien Commander actually smiled at that, the first time Jake had seen such an expression on a Zephyrian face. Captain Morrison, your point is well taken. 3 hours later, a Zephyrian transport ship landed near Base Camp Alpha. But instead of coming to extract the human team, it brought a delegation of Zephyrian scientists and engineers. Commander Velthresh himself walked through the cave system, examining the improvements and innovations the humans had created. "This is remarkable," the commander said, as Kate showed him the lightning collection system. "Our science teams declared this planet uninhabitable because of the electrical storms. You have turned the storms into a power source." Rachel demonstrated how local materials could be processed into construction components stronger than standard manufactured materials. Greg showed the medical breakthroughs that could revolutionize treatment of toxic exposure. Sue presented geological surveys that revealed mineral wealth beyond anything previously imagined. But the moment that changed everything came when Laura Kim introduced Commander Velthresh to her microscopic discovery. "Commander, these organisms could change how we approach hostile planet development throughout the galaxy. If we could understand how they work and spread them to other worlds, we could turn uninhabitable planets into garden worlds in decades instead of centuries." The Zephyrian commander stared at the microscope readings for a long time. When he finally looked up, his expression showed something Jake had never seen in an alien before. Hope. "Dr. Kim, how long would it take to develop this process for practical use? Working alone with human technology? Maybe 50 years? Working with Zephyrian advanced science and human determination? Maybe 5 years." That evening, as Zarian 7's 3 suns set behind the mountains, Jake stood with Commander Velthresh at the entrance to Base Camp Alpha. The Zephyrian had agreed to the partnership proposal, and plans were already being made to establish joint research stations on a dozen hostile worlds throughout the galaxy. "Captain Morrison," the commander said, "I must ask you something. Did your species plan this outcome from the beginning?" Jake laughed. "Commander, 3 days ago my biggest worry was keeping my people alive for 30 days. Humans don't plan outcomes like this. We just refuse to accept that problems can't be solved. And that is exactly why this partnership will succeed," Commander Velthresh replied. "The Zephyrian Empire has always conquered worlds, but perhaps it is time we learned to make them better instead." 6 months later, the first joint human-Zephyrian research station was established on Zarian 7. The planet that no species could survive for more than 12 days became home to a thriving community of researchers from both civilizations. The techniques developed there were being applied to hostile worlds throughout the galaxy, turning wastelands into havens. Jake Morrison, now Director of Hostile Environment Development, stood in his office looking out at the growing settlement. Through the windows he could see human and Zephyrian children playing together in the gardens that now covered much of the planet's surface. His communication device chimed with a message from Admiral Brooks back at Colonial Command. "Morrison, we've received requests from 6 other alien civilizations asking about partnership opportunities. Apparently, word has spread about humans and our approach to impossible problems." Jake smiled and activated his reply. "Admiral, tell them we're always interested in making new friends. After all, the galaxy has a lot of impossible problems left to solve." The human reputation as persistence hunters had evolved into something even more powerful. The reputation as the species the